What is going on, guys? This is Marcia here. I have a very special episode today. This is like none other. Today, I have Coach Dawn.
So the big question is this. How were two women who didn't cheat and purchase a gym franchise model, how were they able to spread their mission and purpose by empowering and transforming hundreds of women's lives through fitness, nutrition, mindset, and accountability with a micro gym business model of women only? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. We are LadyStrong Fitness.
Brittany and Dawn has weekly check-ins. And it just so happened in one of Dawn's weekly check-ins, I was actually kind of in participation, we'll say. And throughout that conversation, Dawn was sharing her background and her story. And the first thing I asked her is, Dawn, have you ever shared this with the community? Because if not, we need to share it. And this is why we have Dawn on here today. So Dawn, how are you?
Great. Wonderful.
Good. I'm really excited because I think more people need to hear your story. So I want to start off by saying that when I learned more about you, I found out that you weren't always as disciplined as you are today. You were more so in a state of mind of doing everything, trying everything. I want you to just kind of explain, we'll kind of rewind several years and how it led up to where you are today. But please spill the beans, the tea. Tell us, if you guys don't know, by the way, who Coach Dawn is. She's been a part of LSF now for almost a year.
Yeah.
It's coming up on here crazy. It just seems like yesterday you just joined the community, but almost a year of coaching, and she has a very extensive background. I mean, I don't literally, it's like a laundry list. We can go on forever. But with that being said, Dawn, for people that maybe do not know who you are, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So just the basics. I have been coaching at LSF for 1 year. Before that, I was coaching for 3 years at Orange Theory, and I have been a high school strength training teacher now for 8 years. My other backgrounds are that I'm a certified strength and conditioning specialist. I'm a certified personal trainer, and I also have my master's degree in exercise physiology, and I just got functional nutrition and metabolic specialized. So I'm able to work with women of very specific populations, like those who have different autoimmune disorders, PCOS, thyroid issues, hormonal issues, women that are coming off birth control, things like that.
I love that. So, man, I feel like you checked off every box.
The words in your mouth, but I had to become the person that I needed. And I had always tried to find answers because I wasn't really committed to figuring out more about fitness until I was 19.
Okay.
And I hated how I was constantly getting skewed information. And at that point in time, like fitness Instagram wasn't really big. Instagram was actually just being started. And in trying to search on the internet, there wasn't much information. Trying to find a coach, there wasn't much coaches. So it was a lot of just gym bros giving you advice and mansplaining things. And then it was a lot of listening to my professors, but there was more that I wanted to know about. And there was a point in time where I was sick of doing that kind of research and was I want to be that one-stop shop of information. And so I strived to have the knowledge that I do so that I could be that person for other people, that they didn't have to do all that search. I would have the answers. I would know the knowledge. I would know how to even find the knowledge if I didn't through peer-reviewed articles and research and be able to dissect it for everybody. So that's why my list is the way it is. With my credentials and still growing, because this is an industry that is always growing. Yeah. But that was my drive. So I wanted to be that one-stop shop of information.
So let me ask you something. Which one came first? Because I think from an entrepreneurial aspect, when I lack a specific skill set, and let's just say that, oh my God, I suck at, being a leader. Maybe I would pick up a leadership book, or maybe I'm not very skillful in being communicative, and I'll find a book on communication. How did that correlate for you? Did you get yourself together first before you start picking up different assets when it comes to fitness, or how did that work? Or did you just kind of learn as you went along? Or
well, when I was in fourth grade, so background story, my mom was a PE teacher.
Okay.
He taught for 45 years. And
Wow.
she was actually my teacher for 9 years. And when I was in fourth grade, I told the entire class that I wanted to be a PE teacher.
No
And
way.
yes, I stood up in front of the entire class and told everybody I wanted to be a PE teacher. And truly, it was because, my mom was one, and everybody loved PE back in elementary school. And it was just the most fun class, right? And then I realized that I just had a knack for teaching
Yeah.
when I started teaching swim lessons when I was like 15 years old. Because I had ADHD, I was able to think faster about different options. And because nothing had come easy to me in terms of sports,
Yeah.
I was always the underdog. I just had different ways of being able to explain different topics because I understood what it was like to not get something.
Mhm.
And it really blossomed for me for physical education and kind of solidified when I was a senior leader when I was in high school. And there was a girl in the class that I was a leader for that was morbidly obese. And the PE teacher had said that the warm up every single day was going to be one lap around the track, and
Mhm.
that students could not leave the track until they finished it. Well,
Mhm.
she was the only girl who could not do it.
Mhm.
And so he would always tell me, stay with her until she's done. And backtracking now, there are so many things wrong with that. But I remember telling her, I was like, okay, we're going to walk 20 steps, then we're going to run 20 steps. We're going to walk 20 steps, and we're going to run 20 steps. And we did that every single day. And by the end of the year, she could run a whole lap without stopping.
Yeah.
And she came up to me the during like our graduation ceremony at school. And she's like, I just wanted to say thank you for being the first person to never give up on me. That was when I knew that this is what I was meant to do, that this was my career path. And that kind of was the drive for me because I knew that there would be teachers and trainers that weren't like me, that I wasn't always athletic. I wasn't always in that, like, I wasn't the first picked. I was always like the almost girl, like I almost made varsity. I almost made the 18. Like I was almost picked. And a lot of other people who became PE teachers, they did it because like sports were just their thing and they were the jocks. They wanted to keep being the jocks. And that wasn't my case. I wanted to be the PE teacher for the people who think they can't. I
Yeah.
wanted to be the PE teacher to show people that they can. And
Sure.
that face is for everybody. So that was always what was going to come first for me was PE. And then PE kind of made me realize like where some gaps needed to be filled in.
Mhm.
And in the PE program at Illinois State, they teach you a lot about motor skills and motor development for kids. And they teach you a lot about how to teach and philosophy and mental health and like health in general. And there's like a team sports class and there's like a dance class, but everything else was more like science based.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to realize that I wanted more information on exercise science. So that's why I actually went and got my master's degree in exercise physiology. And then the next one was from that, I wanted to just be able to personal train because that was another goal of mine to understand more now about programming.
Mhm.
And then it was to be a CSCS because one of the programs in my master's was an
I,
independent
I'm gonna
study.
stop you right there. I know what CSCS is, but can you like identify what that is so people that are tuning in
Yeah.
understand?
So it's a certified strength and conditioning specialist. So it allows me to be able to work with college and professional athletes to be able to program their workouts. And the reason I had got that was just to get an even deeper knowledge base of how to program a little bit better, depending on the skill set, but also the sport. Because in PE, I am dealing with like a mixed bag of students where in the same class, I'll have a kid who's been lifting for 4 years and wants to be a power lifter. But then I have a kid who's in the off season for wrestling, but is in season for football. And then another kid who's never worked out before. And then another kid who's part of the special ed program. And then another kid that's got to like, there's so many like, or like a sophomore that's never taken a strength training class. And then you have the people that think that the only way to get stronger is by doing booty workouts. And it's just like, I wanted to know how to program better for the assortment.
Yeah.
And there was an independent study for my master's degree. So they allowed me to do that for my independent studies. There was a bit of a crossover there. And then for the functional nutrition metabolic specialist, I never wanted to have to turn somebody away for advice because I didn't know. And it's been a hot commodity lately to say the word hormones and to try and make that a money grab. And I wanted more of an information on like what truly is going on there.
Yeah.
And I like now how that program through Samular Science always says take the least invasive approach first and then slowly work your way up. So you're not just throwing a zillion supplements at people or just doing random crazy things like finger pricks and glucose testing and things like if you don't need it. You go based off of someone's biofeedback, which is their sleep, hunger, recovery, energy, digestion, and stress. And after looking at all of that, then you start to take natural approaches and then you work your way up. And then you work alongside doctors rather than trying to play the role of a doctor. So that's pretty much how I started to pinpoint the order of everything.
I like that. That's very extensive. Again, I think this is all valuable because a lot of the things that you have correlates to what you can do inside of our community as well. So, I want to talk more about you, not just your accolades, but more or less like your own personal wellness journey, fitness and wellness journey. Where I'm getting at, Dawn, is that you mentioned to me what resonated with me when I heard you say this is like I was not always like this. But I said, well, what was the trigger for you? Like what was it all of a sudden like you're consistent, you're eating clean, you're getting your sleep, you're like boom, 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 boom. It wasn't one thing at a time. I don't know. Like what was it like for Dawn? Because for me, it's different than you. So I'm curious, what was it for you?
Well, I will start off by saying that I was flattered that you had considered me to be in the same 1% as you as the professional athlete. And because with being on prep and especially right now, it's very much an all or nothing sport for bodybuilding. And I find that I get really triggered by people's excuses. And when you had mentioned, there's that people aren't part of that 1% like us, that's where I had pretty much shouted, like, I wasn't always part of the 1%, which makes it even harder for me because I would consider myself even part of like the 50% at one point in time.
Mhm.
Because my issue is that growing up, my mom being like the fitness enthusiast that she was, she put me in everything. And God bless her soul that whenever I said, like, I don't want to do this anymore, she pulled me out. She's like, you don't want to do it? Don't do it. Like, I don't want you to burn out. I always want you to find enjoyment in fitness.
Mhm.
And for that reason, I could do everything, but I wasn't good at anything. Like I was never, like, oh, Dawn, she's the swimmer. Like, oh, Dawn, she's the basketball player. Like, oh, Dawn, she's like the gymnast. Like, no, like I could do all those things, but I wasn't excelling at any of those
Got it.
things. And like for all of like middle school, I like almost made the 18 for volleyball and almost made the 18 for basketball. And then in high school, it was I almost made varsity for swim team. And then when I did make varsity my senior year, then it was like I almost made the varsity relay. Like it was always I was almost picked, but I was never good enough to do it. And I would always talk a big game, even through like all of high school and all of college, especially like when I was in the circus at Illinois State. I'd always talk this big game like, oh, I'm going to go into an off season and I'm going to practice basketball and I'm going to come back and I'm going to be a starting five. That didn't happen. I remember for gymnastics, I was like, I'm going to practice all off season and I'm going to come back and make varsity. That didn't happen. Like, and then the same thing for circus. Like, yes, my senior year, I was in tight wire, I was in bike bill for 10, and I was in trapeze, like the stationary trapeze. But I would talk this big game about like throwing these big tricks and like doing these crazy things, and they never happened. And the same thing went for weight loss. Like I would always say like, oh, I'm going to get so skinny and I'm going to do like, I'm going to look this way. It never happened.
Mhm.
And it then happened with like, I would sign up for races and marathons and half marathons and then would bail on them. And everybody just started to realize that I was a girl who was all talk, no action. But another part of that too was I was a people pleaser and I was very much into like putting other people first.
Mhm.
So much so that I ended up hurting other people in the process because I couldn't say no. And I just wanted to be kind and polite to everybody, but didn't realize that also meant that I was hurting other people's feelings at the same time. So I was going through and was a victim to the trauma that I had created in a lot of situations by that. And because of that, my goals always took a back burner because I was always putting other people first and trying to invest myself into other people. And there was a point in time where I can truly attest it to this was my turning point. At 23 years old, I was dating a guy who I thought was the love of my life. Like I was head over heels, like madly in love with him. And I completely lost sight of myself. And that wasn't because of anything he did. Like he did not ask me to do all these things. I just threw myself into this relationship. And I remember the Monday after we broke up, I was sitting in my car and I was like, what do I do? Like I went to his workout classes, I went to his gym, I went to his apartment, I went to his restaurants. My whole life was surrounded around him. Like why did I do this to myself? Like if I had been true to me, would he have stayed, you know? And that's when I told myself, I was like, I am done putting other people 1st. I'm done. And I said I wanted to be a bodybuilder when I was 19 and I bailed. I said I wanted to run marathons and I didn't show up. Like I said that I wanted to do all these things and I didn't do them. I said I wanted to go and get my master's. I didn't do it. Why? And that's when I said, I am going to do every single thing that I said I was going to do and didn't. In the process, I had a lot of unresolved trauma from that and like the previous past 2 years of my life. And I coped with it the wrong way. And I became an alcoholic. And even though I was training for a marathon, I did not train for a marathon very well. I would maybe run like 1 or 2 times a week. And my life was straight up like this. I would wake up, I would go to Starbucks, I would get a breakfast sandwich and a large drink. For lunch, I would have Panera and then would go to Starbucks again.
Oh, wow.
And then for dinner, I would go to the bar that I worked at and work on grades and would eat and drink whatever I wanted. And I was doing that every single day.
Wow.
And it was to the point where 2 years later, at 25 years old, I did the Disney Marathon, the Chicago Marathon, I did the Hot Chocolate 15K, I did both Chicago half marathons. Like, and I was a girl who I thought that 400 meters was distance. Like someone told me like, oh, we should do a 5K. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
That's a long distance. And to go from that girl to this one who was running the Chicago Marathon, like I was like, I'm unstoppable. But then at the sub layer, it's like, think of how much better I would have been if I wasn't an alcoholic at that point in time.
Did you put on any weight during that time from that 23 to
So
25? And if so, how much?
I put on 30 pounds. I put on 30 pounds and I also decided that I was going to go platinum blonde. So to paint a picture for you, at 25 years old, I had just finished the Chicago Marathon. I was 5'2" and 150 pounds and probably like a 30% body fat percentage.
Wow.
I was drinking every single night and eating whatever I wanted. And then, yeah, I had platinum blonde hair. So my hair was fried. And you can still see that in my passport picture because I look like I'm on an episode of Alias. And then I would just had like my cystic acne was just out of control.
So that's technically borderline, if not obese. Correct me if I'm
Yes.
wrong at that point. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
I'd be curious if you do have a photo, like you said, with the blonde hair and whatnot. If you do have it, I want to put it in this clip
I
right.
do. I actually had just posted on my own
Yeah.
page.
Do me a favor. So I'm clicking right now. Yep. As we're talking, Dawn's gonna provide me that photo and I want people to see. And this is really good for people to understand that you're human, you know, and shit happens and you weren't perfect. Because again, looking at you now, I would have never guessed that you went through that turmoil in, you know, that 2 year span. And to see where you are today is truly a blessing in itself. Like my next question for you is that the unstuck part. So fast forwarding to 25,
So at 25 years old, I went on a trip to DC to go visit one of my friends. And I told her, I go, you know, I've crossed off everything that I wanted to do. Like I did the marathon, I went blondes, I traveled to different country. I like went on all these big trips, got tattoos, like all of it. The only thing that's left is bodybuilding. And she's like, oh, I know a bodybuilder. I'll just put you in touch with her. And then she put me in touch with her coach.
Okay.
And he was my coach for maybe like 3 months. Just because I didn't see eye to eye with the way he did things. But that was like what his protocol that he gave me right off the bat was a strict meal plan with carb cycling, which to somebody who eats whatever they want and has never tracked macros, and now you're going to say let's carb cycle, like bro, no, that's a little too advanced.
Yeah.
And he really should have just started me with a meal plan and been like, let's try this, or been
Stop
like,
right
here's
there.
macros,
Yeah.
just fill like.
We're gonna pause right there. Pause right there because I want this is relatable to our women. We're gonna pick up right where you left off because there's a lot of women that come into this program, meaning LSF, the 6-week challenge, and a lot of people like you starting bodybuilding are not knowledgeable when it comes to counting macros. So we always tell them it's like it's not about the macros at that point. It's just well-balanced meals, being able to just track. Now,
Yes.
yeah. So we'll pick up, go ahead and finish your story, and then we'll correlate that to someone that's just starting out. So you did
Yeah.
carb cycling. You're like, screw that, I'm done after 3 months.
Well, no, so he started me off on carb cycling, and then he had me on 40 minutes of cardio on a StairMaster.
Oh, wow.
Now, even though I had just done the Chicago Marathon, I didn't work out. Like I said, my training for that was terrible. And then I didn't work out for 2 months after that, which knowing me now is like wild to think about. But I didn't work out for 2 months, and I made it 3 minutes on the StairMaster and had to stop. And I started sobbing uncontrollably because I took a look at the mirror and I was wearing an oversized t-shirt, which was the only thing that fit. And I was wearing like oversized yoga pants because again, those are the only size that had fit. My mom literally took me shopping because she wanted me to be in clothes that I felt comfortable in. And I remember saying, like, is this it for me? Is everybody right? Like, do you just go downhill after 25? Like, is 30 where I just keep getting worse with time? And I was like, no, I have control over this. I have control over my future. I have control of what happens. And this is not it. I am not going to be this bitch. And so I fought every single day. And there were points in time where I was like, why am I doing this? And I kept telling myself, think about all those times that I start and I stop. Mm-hmm. Think about all those times that I said I was going to do it and didn't. Mm-hmm. And every single time I would get to that date and be like, if I would have just kept going, I would have been there. And I was done with that shit. I wanted to know that I did it, that I pushed through, and I would see what would happen. And even to this day, someone who's literally sitting in front of you now with 5 days until her next bodybuilding show on 0 carbs and 130 grams of protein and 35 grams of fat, what keeps me going is knowing that I don't want to get to stage day and wonder. I want to know that I did every single thing that I possibly could do. And my actions have to match the result that I want. And if they don't, I'm never going to get there.
Amen.
And
yeah,
that is the mindset that has got me to the person that I am now. And there are times where I have to take a step back and be like, I fucking did it. I did it. I pulled myself up from the bootstraps. I pulled myself out from being an alcoholic. I pulled myself out from just eating whatever I wanted and going out to eat for every single meal. I pulled myself out from not working out to being a nationally qualified bodybuilder. Like that. And when people are like, oh, well, this is easy for you. Do you think it's easy to stop drinking 7 nights a week? Do you think it's easy when your body is literally craving Panera or whatever fast food chain? Do you think it's easy when you have to go inside and get gas and there's just Reese's cups in front of you? No, I have to fight literally to this day, every single day to say no.
Yeah.
Overcome that and continue to be that 1%.
Yeah.
Because now I am that 1%.
You are that 1% bitch. Pardon my French, but it's true. Now listen.
Thanks for joining us today. If you like this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel or find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or whatever your favorite place is to listen to podcasts. And if you really liked this episode, please leave a review for us on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.